Welcome back to another reading and correcting by me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter of one of my stories and correct as I go. If you want to listen to them live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you're looking for a way to support me, that's on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 29 of A Familiar Death. Marlot glanced over his screen to make sure his lion was seated across from him, busy at his computer, before beginning a search for Helahan's mail. He wouldn't act on what he found, he told his conscience. He just wanted to be ready in case his instincts about him were right, and he might not find anything. He didn't have. He didn't have his family's name. For all Marlot knew, just then was a common name among elephant. His pad buzzed and he answered it without checking the number. Registered Investigator Blacklaw speaking. Ah, Mr. Blacklaw, the mail said. This is Offped from Affiliated Housing. I'm sorry to bother you at work, but we have a house you might be interested in seeing. Isn't Rosalind the one who handles my search? Yes, this started by looking through the 20 Jesdan that came up on the screen, looking for the one who was an elephant. I'm afraid she's not aware. I'm afraid I'm not aware of that. I was just handed your file with the information on the house and was asked to arrange to show it to you today, if at all possible. I understand there are other buyers interested, but you get priority. 2 houses in a week? They were certainly more efficient than Marlowe expected. He muted his pad. Trem, isn't it a house available? You want to go see it? Islar nodded. Where is it? Mr. Blacklaw? The male asked. Sorry, I was checking with my mate. Marlowe grinned at saying that, if we had the time. What's the house like? Where is it? It's in a quiet neighborhood with a nice yard. It has a good-sized kitchen. How many bedrooms? Marlowe asked. The male must be new. Rosalind had pushed what she considered the best features of the previous house without prompting. 3. We would have preferred 4. He checked the fourth name, an alligator. But I guess we can still look at it. He looked at Trembor, who was getting up. His lion nodded. Yeah, we'll look at it. Rosalind wouldn't have singled it out if she didn't think it fit what we wanted. He closed his search as Trembor stepped around their desk. He didn't want to have that discussion right now. Good, good. Offped gave him the address. Now, as I said, it's a quiet neighborhood, so the parking is a little far. You'll have to walk. Why can't we just drive to the house? The local rules don't allow powered vehicle within the community. As I said, it's a quiet neighborhood. I don't know. Having to walk back and forth would be a hindrance. He muted his pad again. Trem, how do you feel? Okay, that's actually the continuation here. Trem, how do you feel? How do you feel about having to walk to the house from the house to the car every day? The house is one of those controlled communities. They don't allow cars near the houses. That's a lot. The lion shrugged. I'm afraid of it. I'm not afraid of exercise, are you? Of course not, but it's going to add to our drive to work, and he looked up the address. It's further out than we'd agreed on. What does it have going for it? I thought back what the agent said. A nice yard, whatever that means. Trembor tilted an ear. Our agent doesn't seem to be in today, so they passed it on to someone who isn't very experienced. It only has 3 bedrooms, so we'll have to figure out how to put the sparring room or pay for to go to a gym. If the yard's large enough, we could spar outside when the weather's good. Unless the house is unless the house is cheaper than what your research indicated, we can't afford a membership at a gym. We can talk to Gribor. He might be able to give us a break on our membership fee. We've been going there for years. I doubt it. He's a nice male, but he is a business male. So we wait for the next house. Gribor was pensive, then he shrugged. Let's take a look at it. If nothing else, it gives us something to do while we wait for Jaxco, and who knows, maybe it'll have something that will make all the small inconvenience worthwhile. He paused. Unless you wanted to use the time to drive back to the town and get the meat that's still there. Marlot shook his head and unmuted his pad. The agent had been calling for him. Sorry, I had to talk it over with my mate. Another smile. He just couldn't help himself. We'll take a look. Are we meeting at the parking lot or the house? We'll meet at the house. I'll send you the best path to take from the lot to there. There's a lot of walking paths and it's easy to get lost. Is it a prey neighborhood? He knew he was jumping to conclusion, but walking path brought pay to his mind. Brought prey to his mind. Predator didn't need to add walking to their schedule. There was a long pause. No, it's mixed. All right, we'll head out now. So we should be there in a little more than an hour. I'll be waiting. The pad disconnected. Why don't you want to get the meat now? You wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. I want to stay closer to in case Jessica gets done early. I want this handed to the lab. That's going to take a while, so we can go then. His pad beeped to let him know he'd receive a file. He pulled up the map of the neighborhood as he stood and frowned. Well, you'll get your backyard, if nothing else. He showed it to Trembor. All the houses were on large lots, but I think they made a mistake. There's no way we can afford that neighborhood. His lion grinned. Even more reason to take a look. We'll know what we can aspire to. All I want is a house to share with you. If that's all, we can move into my place. Trevor nodded to Elahan on leaving to the office. We're heading out. We might not be back. Very well, sir. Have a good day. You too, Marlot said, frowning. Following Trembor, but stopped at the door. Remember to keep my number on your pad, Elahan. If Jusdan does any... He was silenced when Trembor grabbed his collar and dragged him outside. Just leave her alone, the lion said, chuckling. Marlot rubbed his neck. We can't move into your current place. There'll be no space left to live. Two in a singles house just doesn't work. That's why we decided to look for a larger house, remember? Trembor smirked as he opened the passenger side door. We'll make it work well enough. We make it work well enough when you spend the night. On those nights, the plan is to move against one another. As fun as that is, I don't know if we'll enjoy it as much if that's all. If that was all the time. He sat behind the wheel and started the car. Always complaining, right? That's you. Trevor said with an exaggerated sigh. Shut up, you love me anyway. Oh, I do. Trevor smiled broadly. I did sign the contract, didn't I? Marlot looked at his lion. Do you want to tell your parents about it since we're here? Let's wait until we've closed the case. We're going to want to celebrate, and I don't want us to be pulled away in the middle of it. Isn't that why we should tell them early, to give them time to arrange things? Oh, they don't need that much time. They'll set up the table, call their relatives, go hunt. A couple of hours is all my family needs to be ready to celebrate. Real party animal, aren't they? Trembor just grinned as Marlot got them moving. Marlot didn't want to be impressed by this, but he couldn't seem to help it. The trees were a lot taller than he expected, the canopy covering much of the sky. The wooded area hadn't looked this large on the map. He thought a 5-minute walk would take them from the parking lot to the house, but they'd been walking for 10 minutes now, and there was no indication they were close to leaving the woods. This is really nice, Trembor said. He was looking around, also impressed. I could see us living close to a wooded area like this. Not sure about it. I'm not sure about it, I'm not so sure about it, Marlot replied. Come on, a bit of nature right outside our doorstep. It'd be great. That'd be great. Except that if this goes on for much longer, walking from the house to the car will double our commute. He reached a junction on the path and consulted the map. That way. Once we're familiar with the area, I'm sure we'll find a way to cut through all this and make a straight line to the parking. Marlot nodded. He began speaking but stopped. He scented the air again. The wind had just shifted and he caught a familiar smell. It wasn't what caught his attention. There had been other people in the parking lot, and many of them had walked into the wood ahead of them. What was particular about the scent was the excitement in it. Someone was on the hunt. Marlot placed an arm around his lion's waist and leaned close. Trembor's nostrils were flaring too. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there hasn't been any prey walking by us for a while now, has there? Trevor placed an arm over Marlot's shoulder. No. There were a few couples when we entered the woods, but they hurried away. I smell two behind us, Marlot said. A jaguar and some sort of reptile. That identification course is really paying off for you. I should take it. You think they're after us? Makes sense. We are the only threat left to for the father. We made sure he knew we have the remains, and it wouldn't take much for him to work out we'd come back here. If we die, things become much simpler for him. Trembor sighed. You realize that means there's no house for us to look at. Marlot leaned into his lion. It's for the best. We can't afford living here. It's really too bad. I like the idea of living in a place that has woods like this. So how do you want to proceed? Let's keep going. See if we can reach a populated area. If they let us do that, Emperor said, I certainly wouldn't allow my prey to find safety in numbers. We don't have to worry about too much when we hunt. Prey's easy to herd when it's afraid. The wind shifted, bringing them smell further along their path. Two more, Trembor said. I guess they think like us too. A boar and simian. Marlot studied the area ahead of them. The path widened at the curve ahead. Let's stop there and make them come to us. His lion nodded, and they continued talking as they walked, both of them discreetly smelling the air. When they reached a curve in the path, they stopped and moved back and forth. Marlot couldn't see anyone ahead due to the continuing curve of the path. He glanced the way they'd come, and an alligator and jaguar were heading their way, both dressed in black leather and had a particularly mean expression on their face. Even if they hadn't smelled their intent earlier, he wouldn't trust them. When he looked ahead of him, a gorilla and a boar, wearing the same kind of black leather, came visible around the curve. They weren't pretending to be out for a stroll. The hunger in their eyes made it clear they were here to kill. I don't like this, Trevor said. Me neither. I haven't sharpened my claws in over a week. I did offer you to use my scratching post. Marlot only had time to chuckle before the boar and gorilla ran at him. He took a step forward to give himself maneuvering room and waited. They were running close to one another, and now that they were closer, he could see they were young. They couldn't be more than a year or two past predation age. They couldn't be hired hunters, not so young, unless... Could they be part of a pack, looking to diversify? They were dressed the same. The boar lowered his head as he outdistanced the gorilla. Marlot readied himself, watching as the boar tilted his head to bring his tusk to bear. When he was too close to change his approach, Marlot sidestepped, dropped into his crouch, and punched him in the stomach. The boar staggered, fighting to catch his breath. Marlot sprung back, barely dodging the gorilla's punch. He struck back, but the gorilla jumped forward, forcing Marlot to turn around and face both of them. From his vantage, he saw Trembor kick the cheetah in the head. The gorilla jumped at him, and Marlot threw himself ahead and rolled to the ground, bouncing back up in time to take a kick in the side from the boar. He staggered back with a curse. That kick hadn't landed with much strength. Trembor's glancing kicks hit harder, but it still hurt. The boar rushed him again before Marlot could gain a solid footing. He did the only thing he could, dropped down so the tusk went over him, and then stood as fast as he could, getting his shoulder to impact with the boar's chest. There was a sharp pain, but when he looked, the hog was down, wheezing for breath. The punch that hit his back had enough strength to send Marlot flying over the boar. He crashed clumsily, the roll sending more pain up his arm and shoulder. As he stood, he saw Trembor grappling with the alligator and had an irrational fear, an irrational need to go help him instead of dealing with his own attacker. Irrational fear to go help him instead of dealing with his own attacker, which he had to. Marlot barely brought his arm up in time to block the punch, and had to take a step back from the force behind it. He tried to punch back, only to find his other arm wasn't responding. He kicked instead, but the gorilla easily stepped out of the way and then punched Marlot again. His arm kept taking the hit, and he backed up until he was against a tree. Marlot let out a curse as the gorilla grinned and won back. This blow was going to hurt. The gorilla swung, but Marlot dropped at the last moment, and the fist hit the tree with the sound of breaking bones and a scream of pain. Marlot punched the gorilla across the face before he could overcome the pain. He fell to the ground and tried to get up. Marlot kicked him across the jaw and the gorilla fell on his back. He watched the body and hoped he wasn't dead. He didn't want to pay for another one, so he yelled from the pain as something impacted his side and ripped into him. He landed on the ground in a heap, and by the time he rolled onto his back, the boar was on top of him, hitting him over and over. There was no strength in the blows, but there were a lot of them, and Marlot had trouble blocking any of them with his good arm, let alone hit back. He tasted blood and felt felt it run down the side of his face. Among the blows, Marlot saw two golden hands appear on each side of the boar's face, grasped his tusk, and pulled back. "Get off my mate!" the lion growled. The boar staggered but didn't fall. Took a kick to the chest to send him to the ground. "Are you okay?" Trembor asked him. Marlot nodded, but his lion still looked worried. "I'm fine," he wheezed. "Tie them before they wake up." Trembor didn't move. "Go!" After another hesitation, his lion finally moved. Marlot had trouble pulling out his pad and then dialing a number. "Hey, bah," he wheezed. "Marlot?" "Yeah. What's wrong?" The Marlot chuckled and winced from the pain. "It's easier if you track my pad and come. I think you're going to want to show up with whoever you need to send to deal with an assault." And that concludes chapter 29 of A Familiar Death. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story as well as the other books in the series, they are available from all major e-retailers. If you want another way to support me, that's on my Patreon, where you can also get access to just about every story, every story I've written. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.